we get to move forward with first century Aramaic forgiveness with this. I'm realizing more and more that the key to this whole thing, as Yeshua presents it, is having a mindset that supports the presence, or maybe more correctly, more accurately would be the activity of the mind structure, the neural structure that was implanted us from the beginning to guide us. And that, if you remember the opening words in the Beatitudes, each of the Beatitudes says, according to the Greeks, blessed are they, blessed are they, blessed are they, blessed. Like that's some sort of external thing that's going to happen, but that's not even close to what it says in Aramaic. In Aramaic, to translate that one word, tuvehun, which is actually a three-part word, it takes a whole paragraph. And basically what the opening of each of those Beatitudes is preceded by tuvehun. God implanted in your mind neural structures which will guide you when they are active. If they are active, you who follow these instructions will come into conscious possession of and be able to use this latent guidance system designed to make available thoughts and actions that will increase your happiness and well-being. So before each Beatitude, and what you find in the Beatitudes is not a nice philosophy, but a set of instructions for how to activate this neural structure. And one of the key ideas in this Aramaic word tuvehun is that this neural structure is latent or unconscious, i.e., just like if you go in and you edit a document, you realize you've overwritten something you wanted to keep. Well, that's what hostility and fear are doing to the natural neural structure that was given to us to guide us in our lives. And so it's the reestablishment of, the dual process of the removal of what's overwritten, or perhaps it isn't actually overwritten it, but the energy's been put in with enough amplitude that it creates a noise that makes the guidance unavailable. So it's weakening or throwing out the noise, which is called forgiveness, and it's strengthening the neural structure by keying into the direct application of love, the direct invitation, the direct experience of yourself as love, and literally, energetically, acquainting every cell in your structure with that presence of love. That you take time to literally bring. And of course, if you live in the busy, busy world where you've got too much to do, this will never happen. You're going to have to slow down enough to give yourself the time to literally flood every cell in your structure with active present love. And what you'll find is that's where physical, mental, emotional healing happens. It doesn't happen from the taking of a pill. Yes, you can manipulate the energy system so the symptoms don't seem so bad with the pill. But nothing is healed with a pill. It's the removal of what does not belong and spending time with the energy that does belong as the master energy flowing throughout your energy system as a human being. So that's getting clearer and clearer to me as I do this work. And let's see, we're on page, I think we just turned over to page 80. 79, let's see, we're going through the dictionary in the Enlightenment book, and let's see if we've got any really key words there. Khayi, the top of 79, and it's one that has been misused, unfortunately, or I shouldn't say misused, but I think misunderstood, that this this word speaks of in several places, that we live out of our perfect lives. You go back to Yeshua, he says, my words are your perfect life. And what he's saying, he's not doing some magic formula. He's saying, I have the neural structures in the form of words. I've got words that will activate those neural structures in you, and as a result, you will live from the truth of who you are as a human being. And that's been called being reborn, but it's without having to do the work of achieving that state. There are many people running around because they said what they consider to be some magic words that they claim to be reborn. But it's really activating this underlying neural structure and stepping into what in these passages, and it's both in John and Matthew, refers to as your perfect life, your eternal life, your true life that you will live. They're the variations on the theme. Live a perfect life, living out of the truth of who you are. Not that you're following some authority's rules. You know, people talk about law in the Greek sense of the word and substitute it for the Aramaic sense. And in the Greek sense, there's a set of rules. You know, there's an authority, and the authority says you better do this or you are in big trouble. No such idea in the Aramaic. In the Aramaic, it's simply, here's how the energy system works. So you get to live your perfect life. If you're not living it as in and as the presence of active love, then you're not living your perfect life, and you need to be born into your perfect life, which is living in harmony with the way things work to produce the experience of yourself as love and the freedom from hostility or fear when someone around you does something that you consider crazy. You know, somebody does something. Does your mind go nuts? Well, if your mind goes nuts, then you have a nuts mind. You have a problem. And so there's work to be done to get back to your perfect life, because a perfect life does not include a nutsy mind, does not include hostility or fear. I was doing some writing this morning and recognizing that hostility and fear are a mental illness. You go back to Job, and you'll remember he talks about how that which he feared most has come upon him. And what Job is doing there is he's going, oh my God, here I am, all of this terrible stuff has happened to me, and I realize that it's because of my own mental illness. That which I feared most has come upon me. When I apply thoughts with the presence of the amplifier fear, I produce results in my life. And so what, you know, it's not easy, and I'll say this just from my own perspective, until you own that you have mental disorders, to recognize he's talking about a mental disorder. Everybody thinks, oh, well, fear, that's just a natural part of life. You know, it's born and bred in you. Well, not in your original sense. It's not a natural state. Oh, but the baby, you know, has a startle response. Yes, the baby has a startle response. How many generations of unresolved fear are there in that newborn, newly expressing genetic structure? And Job is going, oh my God, I've got a mental illness. I've applied my mental illness of fear to these fantasized outcomes that are a disaster, and my life has been a disaster. When he owns his mental illness, when he owns that, and of course people say, well, Michael, you mean the whole world has mental illness? I would say pretty much, yeah, it's kind of where it goes. Where do you find the expression of human life, of active present love, continuously? And mental illness isn't a put down. It's not a bad thing. For me, when I recognized my mental illnesses, hostility and fear, it was a very powerful, positive, uplifting thing. It's like, oh, look what I have to deal with. I need to get working on cleaning up my mental illness so that I can live as a sane human being. And a sane human being does not live in hostility or fear. People say, well, but Michael, look at the state of the world. Yeah, look at the state of the world. Everybody's doing it, so look at the state of the world. What did Job say? When I apply my mental illness, that which I dread has come upon me, I create in my world the crazies. My mental illness results in crazy world. Yes, the world is crazy. Why? Because most everybody's living out of this fear state. And when we learn how to remove this fear, then we step into, what's this word at the top of page 79 in the dictionary in the Enlightenment book? Khayi. Perfect life. The truth of what we're designed for. And there's conversation here about trial, and trial, in our culture we tend to think of, you go into a courtroom, lots of that crazy stuff going on right now. In the courtroom they have a trial, but in the Aramaic sense, it wasn't about going into a courtroom with a judge. There is a conversation about, better change your mind before they take you before the judge. What is the judge? The judge is your life, the results you produce. Remember, we looked at that definition earlier where it talks about this judge, and that once one has already been adjudicated guilty, then the judge in that Aramaic sense simply carries out the sentence. Life carries out the sentence. That's what Job was getting the insight of. Oh my God, my sentence, life has delivered to me that which I feared most. Out of my mental illness, I've created results. And so in that sense, that word judge we looked at the other day, it's like the judge can't find you not guilty. There's no such thing. It's just the carrying out of the sentence. Judgment day is at hand. It's not about some time off in space. It's about here and now. The results of your creative process are being delivered to you by the law on a daily basis. If you don't like the results that are being produced, then do your work to clean up your own mental illness, to rid yourself of your own hostility and fear. And when you do that, the space inside becomes quieter and quieter and quieter. And as it does, all of a sudden the voice of guidance starts to show up. Not that it wasn't there all the time, but when we say show up, we can hear it. All of a sudden it's available. And so as you comprehend this process of how the law works, and again, the word law in Aramaic simply meaning how it works, then the fear game becomes a moot point. You don't have to play there anymore because you know that what you have engaged in is what's going to show up. And if it shows up and it's not what you consciously would say you want, if your judgment that is at hand is not what you say you'd want, stop. Rather than playing out the one world universal religion of blame that virtually everybody joined by the age of 4, oh, look what they're doing to me, stop and step inside. Instead of a conversation about, oh, look what he did, he said this, he said that, they did this, they did that, oh, they did that to me, they did that. Look at the terrible thing they did. Why is it a terrible thing? Because I feel terrible. Okay, so how about if you shift the conversation away from them, because that's a conversation from your membership in the one world universal religion of blame, and you go back to a conversation about, wow, what came up for me? I need to de-energize. I need to forgive. I need to weaken this sadness, this rage, this guilt, this fear, rather than a conversation about everybody that makes you guilty and causes you to be afraid. The conversation shifts. And the subtle energies that have drawn to you the same circumstances over and over begin to disappear. Kuba, actually, I've repeated this page because we did talk about this. I'm realizing now. Kuba, we talked about. Oh, great. Let's say hello.
It is Mr. Terry, 336. You're on the air.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey, we're rocking. How about you? Welcome, Terry.
Thank you. Is today the Enlightenment book reading?
I'm speaking from the... No, we're doing it every day. We've been doing it now for about, what are we on, day 60 or so, Jean?
Today is 63.
Day 63.
Okay, so we're
continuously working.
Yeah,
well, it depends. If you'd called in first, we just started off with your question, and maybe the whole conversation we'd have never gotten back to the book. But we're taking, questions, comments as we go, and continuing with the book.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. It's like a starter for thought and conversation, and it certainly has done that for me. In Bernardo Kastrup, who has two doctorates, one in computer science and one in philosophy. He came up with the conclusion or statement that the human condition or the world here exists in is the whole totality of it is a dissociated state or dissociated interaction. And so,
result of denial.
Thinking, that's right. Yeah, that's it. So this whole world scene that we're looking at or experiencing is a form of dissociation because we've dissociated from the God of mind, the mind of God. He didn't exactly say it like that, but from all that is the eternal, which is God. God is all that there is. And my premise is always
the presence of love.
Yeah, if there's a God, or if there is God, then there can't be God and. And I came through that little conclusion years back. I thought, okay, well, then God is everything, and now it's been a process of trying to put those pieces together. So with the introduction of the idea that the presence of love, that is our associated, if that's the correct way to say it, or connected state of being, then the hostility and fear is the dissociated state, which is the predominant, if not, I wouldn't even know how to put a number onto it about what
predominant pretty good.
The world is running in that state. So his take, I think, is just a little bit different in that he doesn't understand that it doesn't have to be dissociated. It's not like that dissociated is not primal. Now, at first I thought, oh, that's right, we're disconnected from God, but the Aramaic tools here offer a way to reconnect or to consciously
And we
connect.
all started out in that connected space. We all started out there. Hold a newborn. We started there.
Hold a newborn.
And by the age of 4, we have been brainwashed into becoming very devout, religious, card-carrying members of the one world universal religion of blame. It's the state of the world.
Exactly.
And when we buy into that mental disorder, then our perceptual constructs come from the thought disorder that it's everybody else's fault. So literally, the mind takes that thought and creates a perception, creates a construct of showing us how it's all everybody else's fault. And to me, the genius of Yeshua coming in and going, okay, here's how you break down that construct. Here's how you step into the truth of. Here's how you get to immerse yourself in the truth of who you are, even if it only lasts for a half a second when you first start, by collapsing the dissociated constructs of blame.
Beautiful. Very well said.
So going back
Another
to
connected thought. Go ahead.
Just that going back, and the more time we spend in that connected space, if we're in some form of hostility or fear, having a conversation with ourselves about ourselves rather than someone else pulls us out of that dissociated state, brings us back into relationship with the content of our own minds and bodies, even if it's based in energies that are off the mark. And by bringing the content to the presence of love, there's a transmutation of that content. There's a literal change in the structure of the energy, and the hostility and fear-based blame world disappear.
It works every time. I think the important piece that you added or applied or stated just a moment ago was that even if it only lasts for a moment or a second or a few.
At first it does,
appears, yeah. And even though it's expanding and all, here lately, you know a little bit about what I've been going through and all that stuff. So I get a message this morning from my new landlord, and he's like, I'm having second thoughts about this whole rental thing. So he put me on a month-to-month. Yeah, I know. I almost broke down and cried. It's like, and he told me, he says, we're just going to do month-to-month. I wondered why, but this was the family's, the mom's home. She passed. They spent 2 years slowly renovating this little house. It's really nice, you know. And but like I said, you know, it's about 900 square feet, something like that. And so now there's a few issues that I brought to his attention, and I'm not sure. I can't get enough dialogue with him or interaction to understand where he's coming from. It takes sometimes a day or two for him to respond to a text. I have no idea what's going on with the man process-wise, if I'm triggering all this stuff or whatever. But the plumbing's not working right. I mean, that's pretty essential. And there's only one toilet in the house.
Pretty essential.
And so, so that when I put that out to him initially, then the guy that did some of the work said, "Oh, well, that thing's always worked properly forever." So I was trying lightly to offer the information that, you know, with that remodel, that there's 7 fixtures on 1 vent pipe, and the current code only allows for 3, and that's for a reason, you know, because it won't flow properly. So after I offered that information again, I said, look, we're going to have to get a plumber here, and if it's anything that we did, I will pay for it. I feel strongly that it's not anything that we've done since we've been here a few days. And that's when he came back, well, I can't get a plumber right away. It's going to be probably next week, a few days or something like that before we can get a plumber. And then the second sentence was, I think I'm really starting to rethink the whole rental thing. So it was designed
I want to
bring up
you.
Anything in, Ellen, what's that, sir?
Well, what I heard you say was when he violated a huge, gigantic, monumental goal, from what I understand, it's like this big move that you took place, that you want to be settled somewhere for a while, that your first response, instead of, I suspect, you know, with the history and, you know, the things that you've shared with us here on the show and personally, that your response would have been some sort of rage, and your response was tears, that you're feeling the underlying energy rather than the surface energy of the drug that you've used in the past of hostility.
Yes.
So to me, that's like, wow, that's a huge step forward, and notice how your physiology feels compared to if this had happened 10 years ago or 20 years ago.
Oh,
So that's the
it's a different world.
The gift of the work you've done. That's awesome. And there's still the challenge in the situation. I hear that.
Yeah. And I have no idea what the outcome will be. All I know is that if I lose my connection to the presence of love, it's going to be either hostility or fear-based. And it will
Right.
not be comfortable or anyway. I just let it go. And when I say let it go, it's just not like, oh, stick it in a bag, forget about it. Got to consciously cancel any energies I've got around that for as far as goals and drivers, and let that go as far as pushing me into any certain direction, and then allow to continue to unfold, which is what it's going to do anyway. Life is going to unfold. And that brings me to another little piece of this. It's like, oh, so when I was cleaning out the shop, I wrote 2 words on the wall of the shop for me to contemplate as I would go through the shop. And
Right.
Over the last several months, it was the words were authentic pattern. Let's see. And I love philosophy and reading all this stuff and understanding or trying to understand different perspectives and ideas. So authentic pattern is one of Jed McKenna's things. It's probably not original from him, but that's where it came up for me, was that each one of us comes into this existence with an authentic pattern. And that authentic pattern is kind of like, for lack of better words, it's like God's plan for us, And that.
Well, that's the word we just finished speaking about, your perfect life. That's what regaining that
Yes.
state is what the Aramaic is all about, rather than following, being perfect and following some authority's rules. Reclaiming your authentic pattern. That would be the perfect interpretation or translation of that word.
I like the authentic pattern, the way it felt, the restlessness with it. And like I said, I've been carrying it with me, and I still am. And but it was impressive enough. I wrote it up on the wall so I could constantly remind myself. So Bernardo Kastrup, the one fellow I started off, he also says, that it's like, he uses this nice little analogy where an apple tree, produces apple seeds and apples, right? And it's not whining and moaning about being an apple tree. And he does a much better job, and I haven't listened to that lecture enough to completely paraphrase it, but he was making that comparison to us, that we have this fruit that's within us that will blossom and bloom according to the authentic pattern or our what was the word that you just used?
Perfect. You mean the perfect life idea?
Yeah, perfect life. Yeah, perfect life or authentic pattern. Naturally unfold that unless we are kicking and screaming and whining and resisting and anger and hostility. And it's about, too, it was a little bit about how, and he puts it out there, the chase for fame and money. And he starts about that, how that's like the big driver for most of humanity. He says, well, not everybody was designed to bring in that pattern of fame and money. Some are, some aren't. It's just I myself are a very shy, kind of introverted person, and I don't like a lot of that stuff, and I wouldn't do well with it. So that was just another little layer or deepening of his comment on the authentic pattern that we're looking at tying into. So some sadness comes up for me, and that, wow, why is it taking me so long? What is going on here? It's like, and I have little regret, remorse, all kinds of emotions come up as I've been doing another inventory about the different opportunities and patterns and things that were offered, but I went in a different direction for whatever reason. That's what I wanted to offer, is what that brief little passage that you read is right on track, and is stimulating and strengthening me in that area. And I really like this. I like this format and all. I'm hoping to be able to engage more. I'm not hoping to. I am going to engage more each day on the show here, and as far as listening and taking it to another level, a little deeper and deeper. Yeah.
Sweet.
That's
well,
got,
joining
man.
you in it and in reclaiming your perfect pattern, reclaiming your perfect life, and
Perfect life.
and knowing that all it takes to do that, as opposed to what a lot of so-called Christianity has become, is performative. But you have to perform in order to do it. No, you just need to connect with the truth of who you are and live, as opposed to coming from the ego that says you've got to perform this way. You respond this way because that's who you are, rather than, performing a certain way that's different than what's been brainwashed into your structure, which is, to me, where the forgiveness process comes in so importantly.
Yes, and responding and unfolding that way, it becomes effortless.
Right. And why does it take time? Well, Terry, think back, and I'll join you in thinking back in my family system. Do I have a father, mother, brother, sister, aunt, uncle, cousin, grandmother, grandfather, great-grandmother, great-grandfather, great-great-grandmother, grandfather, that ever could have started to have this conversation or even start to think in the terms we're talking about? I can't think of one. My mother kind of peeked at it a little bit, some of the conversations and some of the work we did over the years. But other than that, there's nobody in my family system that I could imagine even being able to have the conversation.
Oh,
you got anybody?
That's good. See, because no, not at all.
So you're the early adopter. You get to handle all the crap.
Yeah. And so that was another part of Bernardo's lecture, a little discussion. He's dialoguing with some guy I don't know, but he was saying that, he says, what I've adopted and what I would offer is the way to live the authentic life, or to live your tell me yours again. I want to think
perfect
that
life.
out a little deeper. The perfect life. He said, I'm playing the long game. He says, I'm going for the long game. Things that
That's it.
People that will be impacted long after I'm gone. So this brilliant man is playing the long game. Michael Rice, playing the long game. Jeannie, playing the long game. Terry, starting to play the long game better. Okay, and here's what Jeff Bezos is playing the long game. I found that very surprising when I heard one of his discussions and dialogue. So that's another reminder for me here now. I want to play the long game. How do I play the long game? All the above. How do I do all the above? Staying connected. How do I stay connected? I plug in. So here I am. Thank you, sir.
So let's go back to one of the original guys who told us he was playing the long game.
Okay.
2,000 years ago, this guy named Yeshua said, I will always be here for you.
Oh.
So he may have been the original long gamer. Like, I'm on your team for eternity, always, that's it.
Yeah. Always is a very long game.
It's a very long game, yes. Yes. And once the commitment's made, had someone the other day that got into a snit over some of the stuff that came up in response to feedback. It's like, well, I'm not going to do this anymore. It's like, okay, but while you're not doing anymore, by the way, here's my input because I'm on your eternal support team. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, that's it. We've connected. That's what we're here to do. And to then, once you make that commitment, then what do each of us, when we've made that commitment, need to handle in ourselves to do that? Because the mind will always tell us that what we need to handle is something out there, belong to somebody else, rather than what's going on in here. And to me, it's about eternal life and the eternal game. Because
now
that's what
that's
we're here
the
for.
long game.
That's the long game. Well, you do have on your calendar, right, the New Year's Eve party at our land? But
Yeah.
if you don't, make sure, get your calendar out as soon as we finish the show and mark December 31st, 4949, Heartland Party, New Year's Eve.
49.
4949. Please put it on your calendar. Now, I know I've invited you to that party before, but maybe you didn't put it on your calendar. I'm going to ask you actually get the calendar out and put it on there.
I'm coming. Yeah, I'm going to plug it right in.
There you go. Yes. Did you get to listen to yesterday's show?
No, I did not.
Oh, okay. Well, we talked about it. When you get a chance, give it a listen.
Yeah.
It ties right in here. And I honor you for the fact that, and yesterday's conversation was about the power person dynamic. I honor you for the fact that the first automatic response from your mind was one that came from disappointment over the possible loss of the fulfillment of a goal, rather than rage at coming from the power person dynamic in the past. That's like a giant step forward, my friend. That's giant. But and most people have so much noise in their minds that the noise just takes over. The goal is, people say, well, you just don't bother about those goals. No, if a goal is active and it resonates, hostility or fear, that stuff sparks so deeply, you can't not pay attention to it. But as you do your work and you weaken its impact, then you're dissolving the power person dynamic. That's one of the steps out of the short game, because that's the kind of stuff that literally, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, and physically kills us. Handling it, yes, gee, there's disappointment. There's something for me to deal with here. There's some sadness, grief, loss maybe, instead of the old power person dynamic of rage. That's a giant step forward, especially over such a huge goal. And as you say, we've been talking about it. I comprehend how big that goal is with the amount of work it took to move out of your old house and just get into this house in just a few days. The guy's threatened to pull the plug.
Yeah, the day after. It's like the day after I turned the keys into the old place last night. Officially. Oh my.
Opportunities to learn forgiveness. Life is so fraught with opportunities, isn't it?
Yes.
So I support you in healing your sadness.
Rich.
Yeah, I support you in healing your sadness and your grief and notching up life one more notch.
Yeah. Well, the piece
and of
you
course,
just talked
Saturday
to me
we're
about
breathing,
that,
so it'll be perfect. Say again?
Yeah, and the piece that you just offered was perfect about the reaction. That there was the sadness and just letting go, as opposed to the rage and the hostility. Yeah.
Huge progress. And remember, we're breathing. Saturday's mind shifters and still point breathing, so it's a perfect start to the week to build up into what's going to move on Saturday. Sunday.
Yes.
Cool. Awesome, sir. Nice work. Nothing like holding Brahma present, right?
That's right.
All right. Well, any other thoughts? Any other thoughts for you?
I'm just checking in, and I was feeling pretty calm. Pretty calm. No thoughts at the moment.
All right. Appreciate you holding the space.
My pleasure.
All right, take care. Blessings. Blessings in breathing with you. And so, Miss Jeannie, do we have anything else happening in the phone queue or anybody else with a hand up?
We do have a caller on Podbean. So hold on one second. And Jamuna, you're on.
Hi,
Welcome, young lady.
Yeah, thanks for calling me young lady. Eternal being. Hey, yeah. They wanted me to call in with the question, but I was prompted to think about what Yeshua says in the Course of Miracles. I know it's a little bit different, but actually the same or whatever. It's not that I have a question. It's that I forgot chapter 30, the rules for decision.
Right. Go ahead. Did we lose you?
You're a little bit quiet.
Are you still with us, Jamuna?
Is having challenges, but I can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there you go. You're back. No, I've lost you, Jamuna. The reason why I sent you that text is last week you'd been doing some processing on the show, and you'd written me a note about a kid in class, and I felt like it was just a perfect follow-up to the processing that you had been doing. And if it's okay with you, I'll read what you texted to me and what you were looking to process. Is that okay? Janie, can you hear Jamuna?
I can. It's real faint, but I can hear her. And she said she wasn't sure which one you're referring to, but go ahead.
Okay. So you'd written to me in piano class. There's a snot-nosed little brat who is always to play on the grand piano rather than the regular electric pianos we have in class, like he's somehow superior and better than the rest of us. It's really annoying, and I'm getting ready to tell him off, or just go and use it in class anyways. We have only 3 classes left, and through the rest of the year, the semester. Why does he, or who does he think he is? He's a student just like the rest of us. I can be very blunt and upfront, but usually a lot of people will just make me into whatever they need to make me. LOL. I get it. The anger behind it. Always. Anyways, I'm trying to process this. Any insights? And you shared that you'd use the Klingon game in the app. And so just looking at owning the part of your mind that makes him into what you feel he is, rather than being able to tap into the truth of who he is, out of the truth of who you are, where you can connect in peace, whatever he chooses to do. So you went on and said, so I had a light episode. This is when Ruka comes through and gives me a revelation, so to speak. It's part of the canceling. When you ask about what I want to be right or wrong, I received a deep insight. I want to be wrong. I carry this, what's wrong with me, around with me, and I find evidence to support that. And that's exactly the place to keep applying. And, it might take 77 times 70 worksheets to keep applying and process through every layer of that. which is probably a generational pattern. So then you went on to say, and then I want to be right about how wrong I am or flawed. So joining with someone else's assessment of you, which perhaps is an old family dynamic, and that'll be a powerful one to forgive and let go of. And then you went on to say how delighted you were to be able to release it, to let loose of it, and you spoke about having another light episode. And that's the whole objective of the forgiveness process, is to take us into that. You know, when we experience people through the mind, I mean, we all do this. Everyone makes everyone over in their own image and likeness. So when I talk about him being a snotty-nosed brat and I have emotion about it, that emotion and that thought disorder is mine about me and what needs to be forgiven from me. And that's part of what draws those kinds of triggers into our lives until I go, oh, this is about me. So when I face and resolve that, I'm really working through the power person dynamic in my own life. So just to notice how you make people over in your image and your likeness. You know, here's this kid, he's obviously very wrong. And what do you discover about yourself? Oh, I make myself wrong. That's what I tend to prove to myself. I mean, what a relief it's going to be free of that one. And to recognize that anytime you believe something less than love to be true about someone else, when it's other than who they are as love, that's your next piece of work. And so if someone chooses to move on, I might say, well, they're going to do what they're going to do. Can I be the space of active love for what they're going to do? Or do I make them over, do I make them over in my image and likeness? And if I forgive that energy in myself, it's like recognizing that every perceptual construct of the mind is first autobiographical. Now, it might tell me accurate things about them, but to recognize that what shows up as my perception is always accurate about me. And there are two different positions that accuracy reflects itself. One of them is, been there, done that, and I've worked through it. So the only way I can see it in the world is because I have the brain cells for it. I've been there. The other one is, I've got that going on and I haven't worked through it, so now I'm in disturbance and upset, and my mind tells me that my disturbance and upset is caused by them, which it never is. But the projection of the snotty-nosed kid, who did your power person ever treat you like that snotty-nosed kid? And there might be some good worksheets to do on that as a power person dynamic.
Can you hear me?
Oh, there, I can hear you now. You're back.
Okay, I just wasn't sure. Sorry, I called out and then called back in, but I got exactly what you said. I'm going to listen to it again.
Oh.
I want to thank you, Michael, for sharing that, because that's exactly what I'm getting to with the worksheet. I like to get to, what I'm getting to. I like to get to the point, which is the healing.
I'm with you on that.
Share that with everybody. I'm glad that you brought that up and you were able to share the light episodes that I went through. And yes, I was treated like a snot-nosed little brat from my abusive. What I see is I'm still healing this, my eldest brother, who always hated me, but whatever. Anyway, so that's me healing that dynamic.
That's the next layer of your healing with him, right? Is he still in this body? Is he still around?
Yeah. Wherever you go, there you're going to create the things you have shadow figures for that things that aren't healed. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So are you and your brother still in relationship?
What'd you say?
Are you and your brother still in relationship?
No.
Is he still alive?
He is still alive in the physical body, yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Is it time to reconnect and clean up the next layer of, good chance from just a little bit you've said that he may be one of your, if not your primary power person. And so that may be just the space you need to, now that you're at this level of doing your work, to step back into that communication and start to look at the parts of your mind that can't function as love in his presence and forgive those parts of you, and you will advance your life monumentally by doing that. Doesn't mean you need to go move into the house with him, but it might be a space to reconnect and see what he can still resonate in you, perhaps what power person dynamics are going on, and who knows, perhaps healing, an old family dynamic. One of my favorite lines from A Course in Miracles is the one that says, "There is no place so holy upon the earth as a place where an ancient hatred becomes a present love." And this may simply be an old family dynamic that's just waiting to be resolved, waiting to be healed. Does that trigger anything for you?
Oh yeah, it's definitely. I'm ready. It's definitely there because. That means that.
Your voice kind of faded away a little bit there.
Oh boy, technology. What I said is that when you start really going deeper and doing cycle, the Holy Spirit will give you the perfect, beautiful opportunity to go deeper in what you really need to look at, so that you are the light. So that's now the ego doesn't process it that way, or my hostility doesn't process this memory, but the truth of me is always true.
Well, it's cool that the conversation just before you came on with Terry, and Terry shared on the show his history, and just brought up in a really tough, violent environment, and to for me, hearing that from Terry, for him to be in the situation he was in, and for his response to just be with his internal feelings of loss rather than covering them up with the hostility game, that's like monumental progress. And so I join you in the willingness to be able to open communication with your brother and be ready for whatever he has to say. Who knows? He may be totally and completely turned around. There's an interesting film out there. I don't remember the name of it. Gee, probably will. We watched it a few months ago, and it was a story about a guy who, I believe he lived in Indiana, and he had a brother that was out, if I remember correctly, I think he was in California, or wherever it was a long ways away, and this guy was in his late 60s. He'd lost his driver's license. He couldn't drive anymore because of health ideas, and he heard that his brother was dying, and he literally had a riding lawnmower, and he got the riding lawnmower fixed up and rode his riding lawnmower. Gene, do you remember how many days it was? 5, 8, 10, 12 days, something like that, to get to his brother to see him before he died? And he couldn't, neither of them could remember what they'd fought about like 40-some years ago and never spoken again. Go ahead, Jeannie.
It's called The Straight Story, because their name was Straight, Straight.
Anyway, it's a powerful film. So who knows what you'll get to face in you, what your brother will get to face, and what happens to the family dynamic. But we'll be holding the space for it.
I'm so sorry about the bad technology or voice or sound, but I hope everyone got what they needed. I trust.
We got it.
Take it to the next level.
We got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your willingness to share it and to share the enlightened perspective on those sorts of things. That's powerful modeling. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Well, any other thoughts for you before we complete?
Just that about the audio. I know it was kind of annoying, and we'll work on this together. And thank you so much, Michael, Jeannie, and everybody else. This is who we are.
All right. Extending love in your direction. Blessings. All right, Miss Jeannie. Well, we're down to about 2 minutes. Oh, I just got the 1.5-minute mark, so I guess we're kind of pretty much on the line of complete. So I'm just going to say thank you, everybody, for joining us. If you're ready to do some still point breathing, we'll be doing that this weekend. If you want to join the Still Point Breathing Club, you'll find that under events on the website. And other than that, we just hold space for the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the